Welcome to Voices of Reynolds. I'm Marianne McGee, and this is our podcast celebrating the college's 50th anniversary. And we have some of the most fantastic alumni in the Commonwealth right here in Richmond. A lot of our alumni, as you may know, tend to stay local. And we were really excited to get Dannita Trice here today. We know that Dannita has had an awesome career. She is now at William and Mary as an administrator, but our good luck is that she was practically a neighbor. So she was able to pop on over to the Parham Road campus and talk with me today. Dannita, welcome. We are delighted to have you.
Thank you. It is my honor to be here. Thank you for having me. So excited for this conversation today.
Oh, me too. And so you have built a career, Dannita, as an administrator for some of the finest higher ed institutions in Virginia, including Virginia State, VCU, and now William and Mary. You were also a student recruiter at one of the biggest accounting firms in the region. And so you were looking for talent coming out of school. What's interesting, I think, about your story is that it seems like there was a moment in your life when you weren't entirely sure about your own four-year college experience. Absolutely. You said you started at a four-year and then you took a step back. Why was that?
I did, yes. That's my, not secret, but certainly that is my history. Yes, I did begin at a four-year institution, transferred to another. Then I took I think I started at Reynolds, took a break, worked, then came back to Reynolds, completed my associate's degree, and then finally completed my four-year degree. So really it was me trying to figure myself out as an adult, making mistakes, would look back and say, maybe I would have done this a little differently. All in all, though, I'm glad for my experience. Now I'm serving as the Director of Engagement and Operations at the Raymond A. Mason School of Business at the College of William and Mary.
When we were chatting before and we were talking a little bit about your trajectory and you said, well, I'm going to stop, I'm going to work. So many students can completely relate to this. And you said an assistant principal told you were working at a school system, said, you got to go back to school. You got to go back. What was your first thought when that person said that to you?
I know. That was absolutely my thought. I know and I want to. I maybe didn't see the full picture of how at that point. So yes, I'll dive in there that I did work in the public school system as a teacher's assistant. So the assistant principal at the time at that particular school saw something in me, and I so happened to be working at where I attended as an elementary school student, so I knew some of the teachers there as well. So I'm really thankful for that assistant principal. Also, coincidentally, of all people, my kindergarten teacher was still working at that school, who invested in me. They invested in me taking a couple of courses and also having books to come back to school. So to answer your question, absolutely. My thought was, yes, I know. I just don't really have a clear plan on how I'm going to get back into the classroom.
Well, it's so relatable because not everyone has it all sketched out once they're finishing up. And I love that you mentioned the investment. We have a scholarship program and we have Fantastic. Wonderful donors who invest in students, and students will say, yes, it's the money that is certainly very helpful, but it's also having someone believe in them that was as helpful as any of it. Just knowing that there was someone really in their corner. So you came to Reynolds and you said that, I love this quote from you, that it felt like a big hug when you got to Reynolds. Tell us what you mean by that.
It did feel like a big hug. The hug came from the services that were here and the professors being really willing to know that maybe the students didn't know the path that they were going on. Maybe they didn't have all the resources. One example, the bookstore. I remember coming to buy books, and there were options. There was options to either buy the book outright or rent a book. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, I don't have a lot of cash on hand. Yes, I have some support to come back. But, I mean, this is really wonderful that you have an opportunity to borrow a book so that you can read and then return it so that you don't have to go completely without. Also, the professors. I will say that they are some of the most quality professors that I have encountered in my tenure. And I have gone on to get my master's degree as well. So being thorough in their instructional practices and being willing to help students and answer questions thoroughly rather than simply passing students off.
Well, look, you amaze me for many reasons, but we were chatting earlier about your experience with your calculus professor, and yes. You still think that
Professor
you could do
Adams.
You think you could still do a calculus problem if it was put in front of you because he was such a terrific professor.
I think the first 3 or 4 chapters I could probably. I could probably get through. I've actually tutored students in calculus, so yes. Give me a few minutes to dust off, and I think I could do it. But yes, Professor Adams was one of the best professors that I have ever had, and namely in calculus.
It's so fantastic to talk to alumni because to a person, they can name a professor that they just feel like either electrified or inspired them in a particular subject, or perhaps they didn't realize how smart they really were, and then they ended up in a professor's class who said, you're awesome. Yes, you can do this. You may have to work hard or harder than others, but you certainly can. So to a person, our alumni just have fantastic memories of professors. I want to ask you, Dannita, because in your work advising students, in your experience, kind of as we wrap up, what advice do you have for our students who are listening to you today?
Take advantage of the resources that are in front of you. And I would say, well, let me back up. I would say first and foremost, start with the decision. Start with the decision that you have a bright future, and it is beyond what's in front of you if you're willing to work for it. And then 2, tap into those resources that I mentioned that are around you. You may have no idea what it is, but show up to one of the student services offices. If you have to start with the person that helped you register for classes, to say, is there a career services office? Is there an advisor that can help me make a career plan? Please do that. We can make excuses all day about how I'm so busy. I have a job that I'm doing. I have children. I have X. I have Y. I have Z, which is all true. However, you have to put yourself first also by tapping into or checking out the resources that you might have, because sometimes the difference between you having, not having, progressing and not progressing is simply asking questions so that you can get more information and begin to network and build up to what could be your future.
Dannita, that is fantastic. And I also want to give a little shout out to our PTK folks, because Dannita was a PTK member. And exactly. And certainly and clearly developed her leadership skills. And the wonderful thing is sharing those with others. Dannita, you are a fantastic example of why Reynolds Community College is such a wonderful resource and launch pad for people who are destined to be stars like you have become in your career trajectory. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you on the next edition of These Voices of Reynolds.